Welcome back to another episode of Rabbi in the Hot Seat, where we face all questions, all worries, doubts, fears, all hopes, dreams, everything you want in your life. You can reach out to me. I grew up in England, studied philosophy, lived in Asia for 6 years, black belt taekwondo, brown belt aikido, Jewish. Let's go.
Do you think that some people become religious because they're escaping life rather than confronting it?
Oh, absolutely. I think that often happens. I believe, was it Marx who says religion is the opium of the masses? Religion actually helps you feel connected to a community, which is amazing. Religion gives you purpose and meaning in life. Religion helps you deal with life's challenges by saying, well, it's all for the best in the end. So I do believe people do become religious for the not great reason of I'm escaping reality. However, the truth is I became religious because I'm a rational human being seeking for the truth, and I saw that Judaism has the wisdom and the evidence that is true that can lead me to the greatest possible life I can ever live. So yes, I believe people sometimes, when they don't want to confront life, run away from it into religion. But you know what? That's actually probably better than running away from it into drugs and Subway Surfers.
Benny asks, if you had a child who told you they no longer believed in God, what would you do?
If I had a child who came up to me and said, Dad, I don't believe in God anymore, I'd say, that's okay, child. I still love you. I'm still here for you. But the truth is, I would then try to sit down with them and bring the evidence that there must be a God, because there's a universe, and the universe can't have just arisen out of nowhere. There's immense design within the universe, and design cannot be random. We have consciousness, and consciousness cannot evolve from matter, so there must be an infinite consciousness from which the universe. So I gently try and show them that there is a God, but also being aware that possibly it's not an intellectual problem. They have an emotional issue with Judaism or with God, and that's why they don't believe. So if someone's got an emotional issue with God and you try and prove it with logic, that doesn't work. Truth is, thank God, my children are growing up in a very healthy, loving, joyful home with no religious pressure, and we're traveling a lot, and they do music and they play sport and they love Shabbat and the mitzvahs. So hopefully I'm bringing them up in a very loving and joyful, emotionally healthy way. And I've also shared the evidence with them. I've actually said to my kids, my daughter had her bat mitzvah, and before she had her bat mitzvah, I said to her, look, why do you believe this? Is it just because I told you? I want your bat mitzvah for you should be you claiming it for yourself. So I'm not just religious because I was brought up in a religious home. I'm religious because I actually see that it's the best possible way of life, and I also see that it's true. So I'm doing that. My son's bar mitzvah next January. You can send gifts. And my son's bar mitzvah, and I'm also kind of saying the same to him. I'm saying I want you to claim your Judaism for yourself and not just do it because of me.
What's the difference between Halacha and Hashkafa, and does it even matter?
Oh, very good question. Halacha is, these are the rules, these are the laws, these are the details that you can implement in your life in order to live in line with Ratzon Hashem, with what Hashem wants for us. So if you're going to put on your shoes, you put on your right shoe first, because that represents chesed, loving kindness, and then you put on your left shoe. If you're going to eat food, you're going to say this blessing, it's Shabbat. So halacha are the laws and really the guidelines and the pieces of advice for us to live in line with God consciousness. Hashkafa is your world view. What kippah you wear, if your kids go to the army or not, if they live in Israel, how important Torah learning is, or is there space for art and music and sports? Do you only wear black and white, or do you wear other colors? That's hashkafa, and the truth is that's up to you. Halacha, you can't mess with. It's not compromisable. This is, you can't eat pig. You just can't eat pig. But when it comes to my world view, that's really open to discussion, and I don't think there's a right or wrong. In fact, and some people think I'm crazy, but my kids go to very different hashkafic schools. My daughter goes to a Beit Yaakov school in Mea Shearim, a very, very Haredi school in Mea Shearim. My son, he's very creative and he'd be crushed in that system. My daughter is flourishing and thriving in that system. In fact, I was awake till 2:30 last night learning Torah with her because she loves doing that. I didn't tell her to do that. My son would be crushed there, so I've sent him to a very Dati-Lumi, religious Zionist school, which has lots of music and sport and art and woodwork. And my last son, I felt that he would just drift away in that system, so I put him into a Chabad school. But it's not only Chabad school. There's many Breslev kids there, but it's a very warm Hasidic school, which is very Torah focused, but in a very warm and loving way. Each child in a different thing, because Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon says, "La'anoch et hana al pi dako." You got to raise the child in a way that is good for them. So I see that my children have different neshamas, they have different souls, so they need different hashkafas. The truth is that when they grow up, they can choose what hashkafa they want. So if they can change, if my daughter wants to become Breslev and my son wants to become Dati Lumi, because I think that there's not one right hashkafa. All the hashkafas are valid paths, and you have to choose which one suits your soul. Whereas halacha is halacha. So you can't then change halacha, but hashkafa, open. Someone said to me, you can't have one son sitting at the Shabbat table wearing a black hat and a jacket, and another one sitting there wearing an army uniform. And I was like, yes, I can. I actually think that would be beautiful. But it means that I've got a very, very strong sense of self and a very strong loving home. And I never put down other hashkafas. So for example, my daughter's school, they don't mention Yom HaAtzmaut. My son's school is a very big day. They love Yom HaAtzmaut. Who's right, who's wrong? I'm not getting into that discussion. I think there's a place to say that's right. I see why they're saying what they're saying. And I see why they're saying what they're saying. And choose which one feels right to you and your own self-expression. And that's good. Halacha. Can't mess with halacha, hashkafa.
Once you've chosen your hashkafa in life, does God care if you change hashkafas?
No, once you've chosen the hashkafa, if you now feel I'm actually becoming a little bit more Haredi, I want to have a little bit more stringency in my halacha, and then that's okay, because hashkafa is open. Do whatever you like in hashkafa, halacha, stick to halacha. So I'm going to tell you a cool story. I was walking my daughter. She was 4 years old. I was walking her to school in the morning, and there was a picture of Rav Odessa. He's a Breslev Chassid, and my daughter said to me, "Who's that?" And I said, "That's Rav Odessa. He's a follower of Rabbi Nachman." So she said to me, "Well, who do we follow?" And I said, the truth is we follow whoever is going to take us closer to being good people and come close to God and Torah. So really, Breslev, I like Breslev, and I like Chabad, and I like the Chavetz Chaim, and I like Moshe Feinstein, and I love Halacha, and I love Gemara, and I love Chassidut, and I love Kabbalah. So I don't mind what hashkafa the rabbi has, as long as Halacha is important to them, and they want to come close to God. And then I said to her, but it's your choice. When you get older, you can choose your own hashkafa. It's your own relationship with God. So choose what's good for you. And we carried on walking. And she was a little bit quiet. And then she looked at me and she said, Abba, maybe I'll follow whoever my chatan follows. I'll follow whoever my husband follows. And I was like, no one's ever touching each other. I said to her, I hear that. But maybe it would be better to choose who you follow and then find a guy who also chose that, because marriages are made based on shared values. We have the same values. So work out your values first, find someone with the same values, and then that would be much better. So you've got to know what's my hashkafa, find someone with the same hashkafa. So you've got to work that out first. And then I said to her, so you follow whoever you like, just don't follow the Yetzer Hara, the negative inclination. And she was like, no. So yeah, I don't care what hashkafa my children do, but I do want them to be living a halachically joyful and conscious life.
Raquel asks, what's the key to good communication?
Key to good communication, and this is very, very important. My wife and I have been married for nearly 17 years now. We've never had one argument in 17 years. And the key to that is we never, ever, ever speak to each other. I'll tell you the truth. The truth is there are two major keys to good communication. Number one, never, ever, 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 ever put someone down. Never say something negative or unkind. I've never said anything not nice to my wife. I've never called her a name. I've never said to her, what's wrong with you? Why would you do that? I just don't say not nice things to my wife. This is why we don't argue. Arguments are basically, I'm going to say hurtful things because I'm right and you're wrong, and I don't really care about your feelings. I just want to show you I'm right. So we don't argue, we communicate like grown-ups. Now, I don't say anything bad to my kids either, or my colleagues, or my students, or my friends, or my parents, because healthy communication means I'm not putting people down. The purpose of communication, by the way, is communication comes from the word commune, which means to get together, to come close. So putting people down doesn't build emotional intimacy, doesn't build love and respect and care and compassion and joy. So don't do that. So number one rule, don't say not nice things. Number two rule, express how you feel. Don't blame and accuse the other person. Say, when you do this, it makes me feel disrespected, or it makes me feel that you're not honoring me enough. When this happens, this is how it makes me feel. So speak about yourself. And the other person can't make you wrong for how you feel. You're saying, this is how I feel. So if the two people are having the discussion, are communicating because they actually care about each other and they want to return to emotional intimacy, then this is a beautiful way to do it, because I'm just expressing my feelings and I care about your feelings. And then you can make a request. You know what? Next time, can you say it like this? Or can you make sure you call me if you're going to be late? Whatever it is, I'm expressing what I need and what I feel, and I'm asking you to provide that for me. And if it's a healthy relationship, I want to provide that for you. My wife was trained as a social worker, so she taught me this communication game called clearing. We're clear. And we did it before Shabbat every week, so we were clear. The first question was, what's not working for you in our relationship? So just, if you leave your socks lying around, or if you come home late from work and you don't call me, just things that are not working. You leave the toilet seat up, whatever it is, not working. And the other person can't interrupt and say, but you're leaving your socks lying around. Just let the person just share what's not working, not accusing the other person. This is just not good for me in the relationship. Second question, what is working in the relationship? That's positive reinforcement. I love the way you bring me my breakfast, and I love the way you send me emojis, and positive reinforcement. The third question is, what are you holding on to? Which is different. The first one is kind of general habits. The last one is specific things. You said something not so kind the other day and it hurt me a little bit. Or whatever it is, specific things. Now, the person asking the questions can't interrupt. They just ask the questions and the other person just gives it all, says everything, gets it all out on the table, open and vulnerable. I'm in a safe space to be able to express myself without being attacked. And then you switch roles and that person asks. And after you do that, most of the problems are cleared up, because I just wanted to be heard. I just wanted to feel safe and cared about. And the problems that aren't cleared up, then we can now talk about it. I'm sorry for coming home late, but sometimes it's difficult. We can then work together, because the purpose of communication is to commune. We're going to work together because we value the relationship and we want to return to emotional intimacy.
Thomas asks, are there people who could be healthier staying secular rather than becoming religious in the wrong way?
I don't know if I understand that question. What do you mean, becoming... Yes. I'd go, if you do anything in the wrong way, it's not very good. So if you become religious because you have a lot of fear of punishment, or you have a lot of guilt, or then you'll be a very, very unhealthy person. So if you're a very healthy, joyful, wonderful, conscious, secular person, that's better than being a completely psychotic, weird, religious person. And in general, an emotionally unstable person who becomes religious and now is just an emotionally unstable religious person. So that's not any better. But to become religious in a conscious way is definitely the ultimate thing there is, because the religion is the guidebook. So if you become more religious and you become a kinder, sweeter, more balanced, connected, spiritual, beautiful, amazing, empowered person, then that's clearly the ultimate goal. There is an idea that you can do something for the wrong reason, but having in mind that I'm going to do it for the wrong reason at first, that can bring me to be able to do it for the right reason. It's called Ba lo lishma, bo lishma. I'll do it not for a perfect reason, but in order to get me into the position where I can actually grow in a healthy way. Although, let's think about it. Let's say you've got a secular person who is great, a wonderful, beautiful, amazing secular person, but they're not actually following Torah. It means they're really missing out on reaching their ultimate spiritual potential in the world. So it might be, in some senses, better to be someone who is a kind, religious person, but they're doing it out of fear, which isn't healthy, because at least they're in the game. They're doing what they're meant to be doing, and from that place they can grow and really let go of the fear and start doing it from a place of love instead of fear.
What's the harder inner work to do? Learning to submit or learning to think independently?
Well, I'm going to combine the answers, because submitting is a form of thinking independently. Healthy submitting is, I know that there's my ego and I know that there's a truth that I want to start surrendering to and living in line with, even if it's difficult for me. Now, if you're submitting against your principles, against your wills, that's a stupid thing to do. You shouldn't do that. But healthy surrender to what you know to be true, even when it's difficult, is actually a form of independent thinking. Now, independent thinking is very, very, very important. Some people say to me, well, don't go to yeshiva because you'll be brainwashed. And I said to them, the truth is, when I was growing up, I was brainwashed, told what car to drive and what drink to drink and what phone to have. The purpose of yeshiva, I tell my students, is actually to create independent thinkers. I want you to think for yourself. I want you to question what I'm saying. I want you to go to ChatGPT and check if what I'm saying is even true. So people say, you come to yeshiva, you're going to get brainwashed. The truth is, brainwashing is I'm using psychological manipulative techniques and measures to get you to believe what I believe, usually to take advantage of you. Whereas education is, I'm giving you evidence, I'm giving you information, and I'm inviting you to discuss this not only with me, but with your parents, with the outside world, and with ChatGPT, and let's work together to form some kind of truth in our mind based on evidence and open discussion. In fact, I just saw this video, Cults to Consciousness, and they started attacking Aish. Aish is a cult. And the truth is, do you know what a cult is? A cult is someone who is manipulating people to do what they want in order, really, it's usually for sex and money. Rav Noach Weinberg Zatzal, who set up Aish, was a complete tzaddik. He wasn't into money. He wasn't even a rich man. He raised millions of dollars to help the Jewish people, and he was completely sexually moral, only with his wife. Now, it's crazy to call Aish a cult. Maybe people get carried away and they go over the top and they become extreme, but that's not Aish's fault. So this whole cult to consciousness, I actually saw one episode where a woman said, I had to host so much and I got so exhausted from hosting, and I was like, why didn't you just host less? Aish didn't tell you have to have 100 guests every week, so just host a little bit less. So Judaism and Aish and Hashem says, really try your best. Rahman Liba boy, Hashem wants your heart, and that's what really matters. So if you have someone who's doing everything all the time, going over the top, but they're completely stressed or even arrogant, I'm looking down on other people because I'm doing better than you, that's not healthy. Hashem wants you to do your best, and that's what Aish is really trying to teach people. We want you to live the best life you can. We want you to have the most pleasure in life, physical and emotional and spiritual pleasure in life. And we want you to be good people who honestly care about the Jewish people, fighting anti-Semitism and lack of Jewish identity, and trying to empower people to live the best life they can. And unfortunately, if someone grew up in an abusive home, or they had some bullying as a kid or some emotional thing, they can freak out and say it's a cult. And I do see some people grew up in abusive religious homes. So then they blame a religion. But you don't blame the religion. It's not religion's fault. It's your parents who brought you up in abusive homes. Someone even actually said to me, their parents used to not feed them if they didn't make a bracha, or hit them, lock them in a room until they davened mincha. With my kids, I say, look kids, I'm going to make a bracha now, I'm going to bench, I'm going to say Birkat Hamazon, the blessing after meals. If you want to join me, you can join me. And they sometimes do and they sometimes don't, because I don't want to pressure them. I don't want to make Jewish law a punishment for them. I want my kids to joyfully be following Jewish law when they're 18, so I'm not going to destroy them when they're young. So usually the reason people stop being religious is either they came from a really, really abusive home, and someone who came from an abusive home spoke to me the other day, and stopping being religious is called going off the derech. So they said, I'm off the derech. I said to them, you're not off the derech. And they were like, what do you mean I'm not off the derech? I've got tattoos. I said, you're not off the derech because you were never on the derech. That's not the derech. That's not the path. That's weird. That's not Judaism. This is real Judaism, but often it's too late by then. I actually had a person on one of my trips to Thailand, and he was of the derech, and I asked him about his childhood. And he told me he got hit if he didn't do this, and it was all pressure and guilt and fear. And then when he was 12, he left and ran away. And I said, great move. And I gave him a mashal, an analogy. I said, imagine everyone's talking about ice cream, and they love ice cream, and you go to ice cream school, and you have ice cream festivals, and you have pictures of ice cream on the wall, and everyone, the gematria of ice cream, and you learn about ice cream, and you have songs, ice cream festivals, but then someone force feeds you chili powder ice cream. It's, God, so your experience of ice cream is actually disgusting. As soon as you're 12 years old, you're like, I'm never having ice cream ever again. I hate ice cream. And then I come along when you're 18, 19, 20 years old, and you come on this trip to Thailand, and I'm like, yay, ice cream! And you're like, blah! I'm never having ice cream! Ice cream! And I'm like, whoa, dude, ice cream's good, dude. So many different flavors. It's so sweet and so good and tasty. And you're like, you don't know about ice cream, man. I grew up with ice cream. I know what ice cream is, man. I'm like, whoa. So they tell me what ice cream is, and you're like, it's got chili pepper, and you get the stuff. And I'm like, dude, that's not ice cream, man. Here's ice cream. Often at that point, it's too much. The trauma destroyed them. So if you grew up in that sort of household, then you're going to go off the derech. But it wasn't even the derech. The other reason people go off the derech is maybe just because they didn't have an emotionally, not an abusive home, but they weren't living their Judaism with joy. So they were making, I'll tell you another story. Wow, this is an episode of stories. Someone invited me to his house and said, my son is into Buddhism. Will you talk to him? You're the Buddhist rabbi. So I went to speak to the son. Sweetest kid in the world, grew up in this religious home, very interested in Buddhism, very spiritual. And then the dad called us to dinner, Friday night dinner, and he made kiddush. And he got his kiddush cup and he was like, And then that's it. And so at the end of the meal, the dad walked me to the door and say, what do you think of my son? And I said, I think your son is great. He's spiritual. He's amazing. But he said, yeah, he's not interested in Judaism. And I said, do you want to know why he's not interested in Judaism? Because of how you made Kiddush. He didn't invite me back. But so number one reason people stop being religious is abuse. Actually, an abusive, traumatic childhood. Number two, the Judaism they were presented, even if it wasn't abusive, just wasn't spiritual. It wasn't alive. Their parents weren't into it, so they're like, why should I do this? And the third reason is taiva. It's just, I just want to experience the world and drugs and sex. And Judaism feels it's constricting me, so I don't get to enjoy life as much as secular people. So that's why people go off the derrick, stop being religious. If you grow up in a very loving, healthy, emotionally present home, where Judaism is actually beautiful and full of vitality, and you're treated well, and you have the evidence, and I can show you that God exists and the Torah is true, there's no real reason to go off the derech. And I actually believe that if one of my children stopped being religious at some point, 16, 17, 18, I think they come back pretty quickly, because the world out there isn't so nice, and they won't be unconditionally loved, and they'll get into a relationship and they'll break their heart, and it'll be really difficult, and they'll start finding life less meaningful. So I think they'll come back to a place where they're fully, completely, unconditionally loved, and have lots of joy in their life, and lots of meaning and depth, and festivals, and good relationships, and everything you want. So thank you so much. It was another episode. We spoke a lot about leaving Judaism, actually, and why many people leave Judaism, and how we can avoid that for ourselves and for our children, and really how to create good relationships through healthy communication. This is really, really important stuff. We really want to get this out. Spread the word, like, notifications, all that good stuff. Send in your questions. Come and visit me in Jerusalem. I teach a live class every day opposite the Kotel at 11 a.m. Come and ask live questions. No? Love you.